What's up, my dudes? Let's talk about the physics. The wonderful physics of an arcade motocross game. Makes so much sense, right? It's actually pretty crucial for a motocross game, and I don't know why this is, but more so than any other game, I feel like to be realistic feeling. I don't really know a soul out there that plays a motocross game for it to be like unrealistic and super fantasy. I mean, obviously, this is not going to be a simulator. I totally understand that, but like, if there's no skill gap to your game, then what's really the point of even playing it? You know, if it's so like fantasy and easy feeling on the bike, then what's even really the point? I mean, to me, there's just no point. But this is something I've really had to learn, and this is a really interesting point to bring up about all of this stuff is just because you think a certain physics feels right does not mean that everybody else thinks that's the right way to have the physics, you know? And you really got to realize that sometimes. Like, just because you think you're the most logically thinking person and it's like, dude, reflex physics, those can't be beaten, you know? Well, you can have somebody else that thinks that alive physics are the best ever. I don't know how the fuck they would think that, but they could potentially think that, you know? And you could have some people that think the older games had better physics. You could even find some people that think that MX versus ATV Encore had the best physics. Again, I don't know how they would think that, but it's possible. You know, you can't always just like put the blinders on and think that everybody thinks like you. Even though I do think the mass majority of the fans believe that Reflex was the best one, it's still, to a certain degree, like the developers, they always got to be careful. You know what I mean? They always got to be careful with what they're doing. They can't just go off of like what some people are saying because that may not be what everybody's wanting. And so it kind of gets jacked up like that. You know, you can very easily sway like a whole ocean just by making a big YouTuber making one video on something or anything like that. You know, it can make it seem like, oh, the community wants this, but actually the real community wants something else. You get what I'm saying? Now, with the case of these motocross games, it's just looked lazy. I mean, what they've done in the past 3 or 4 games, it's just been lazy. Ever since Reflex, their physics system has been just something else, man. It seemed like they were working their way up from those very early on MX versus ATV games. It's like the physics would get better and better and better and better. Then it got to Reflex, and it like hit this pinnacle, and then Alive came out, and it was like, you floated in the air for like twice as long. The cornering wasn't as fun. The skill gap wasn't really there as much. There was like something that you unlocked that made you scrub better. Like, what the hell is that, man? I should not have to unlock something that is a skill, like a actual core skill to the game. Please, good God, never put that in one of these games ever again. Okay, so basically with MX versus ATV All Out, I hope that they've listened to the community first and foremost. I don't know how much they have access to as far as like, could they just grab basically Reflex's, you know, actual physics system and then bring it right into the game, tweak on it a little bit, and then that be in the new game. I don't even know if that's a possibility, you know? I don't even know if they can even do that. Like, I don't know if they're trying to like work from the complete ground up, trying to make something like as good as Reflex. You know, they almost had to like start back over from scratch because those older companies that were with Reflex have kind of, they shut down, at least I thought, and then now they're back. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just Nordic that's using their name. I don't know what is going on with that. That's one of the weirdest things ever, but, you know, regardless of it, like, everybody's going to have their own opinion on what they think the best arcade mode physics are. And it's kind of, that's what I was saying at the very beginning of this video. It's kind of silly that we're even like, you know, that's probably the biggest like discussion point is always the physics of a motocross game. But these are arcade motocross games. Like, they're not even a tenth of what MX Simulator is as far as physics wise goes. So it is a bit silly when when you really talk about it and get kind of heated over the physics and stuff like that, and you get all fanboy about one game and stuff, I totally understand that, but man, Reflex just had a way of finding like a balance between like it was fun, it was accessible, but yet there was a skill gap to it, a super deep skill gap. But even if you have the best physics in the world and your tracks blow ass, then that kind of kills your skill gap too. You know, Reflex sort of had it all. Like the tracks were fun, they had brand new supercross tracks, brand new motocross tracks, brand new free ride tracks, brand new freestyle courses, all of that stuff, waypoints, kind of sort of trail type tracks and stuff. All that stuff kind of came together to make that experience, but they always talk about the whips. That's like one of the biggest things when they talk about physics. Well, how good does the bike whip? Well, you can make a bike whip pretty well and then corner like shit. I mean, it's kind of like a combination of everything, I feel like. It's kind of just, it's how you turn, you know, it's how quick that bike turns, how much it can turn, but they have to be careful because if you allow the bike to turn too sharp, then it's a simulator. Then nobody can hold the bike up. You get what I'm saying? So that's kind of always the balance they're trying to find with an arcade motocross game. They want you to have as much feel in the bike and the controller as you possibly can without it just being like ridiculous difficult. I don't know any of these arcade motocross games where you basically just like fall over on the bike if you turn too sharp. I mean, obviously if you're going like super fast and you just lay that bitch over on a sand berm, then you're going to fall over, but like it doesn't have the same sort of characteristics as like a real dirt bike would have where you just basically fall right over. It doesn't really do that with an arcade game. It has a certain level of like holding the bike up for you. Now, with this newer game that's coming out, I have no idea where they're going with this. I don't know if it's going to be like reflex physics, if it's basically just going to be like MX vs. ATV Supercross Encore 2 or remastered, you know? Oh, God, if it's like that, I'm going to be super disappointed. But, surely at this point that I thought they would have heard it after we spoke about it from Alive, but it seemed like it just got worse. You know, it just got worse. It's like, what the fuck are they doing? Like, it started on Reflex. It was like the best game ever, whatever. So then Alive comes out. We're like, oh my gosh, how did they do this? How's this even possible? Didn't come with Supercross tracks except on the James Stewart compound. Physics were silly to say the least, and then you know, we were thinking, okay, the next game is going to be amazing. You know, they have to have heard us. They have to have went back to more like what Reflex was like. But they actually went, it seems like even further away. To me, it seems like it was harder to whip when MX vs. ATV Supercross first came out than it was in Alive, if I'm not mistaken. And then I didn't even play any of that Encore shit. Like, I played MX vs. ATV Supercross for like a week, and then I completely quit all that and haven't played any of the new like DLC, but it was like old hash tracks from Alive. What the hell are they doing? I don't know. You know, I've lost a lot of faith in them over the past 5 or 6 years. But whoever made Reflex, whoever was the head honcho chief boy on that shit needs to get back in the business, and they knew what they were doing. You know, I was speaking before about how everybody has their own opinion on physics. Well, there's just look at it. I mean, you know, you can have your own opinion, by all means do that. You know, you can love Alive and love Supercross or whatever you want to do, but just look at the way the bike looks when you're playing the game. That's all it takes. Look at how it is in the corners. Look at how it is on the jumps. Make sure you have, I think there's actually an option in Reflex where you can go in there and make it to where you actually turn quicker and steer quicker and shit like that. Make sure you have that maxed out. You know, have the maximum movement that you can possibly have on the bike. I think it's just all about having the feeling of like you're actually riding the bike, and there's more feeling to from the tire to the dirt, It doesn't just feel like you're on a cloud the whole time you're playing the game. I think that's a big physics thing. Now, you always get those day one weekend warrior players that are like, they haven't played a motocross video game in 10 years, and they just hop on Reflex, and they might think, oh, dude, this is kind of hard, you know, because people can actually master Reflex and become really good at that. So you can be smoking people on Reflex, and then I could see where that would shy away beginner players. And a lot of times, a lot of these companies, they try to get very like user friendly. They try to get very beginner friendly with their games, so it's attracting basically everybody. It's attracting, you know, the people that just love motocross and supercross and don't even really know about motocross games. They just happen to buy it, and then it's very easy to be James Stewart in a day on that game. You know what I mean? Versus like actually taking skill to get good at the arcade motocross game. So yeah, that's kind of my opinion on that. With this MX vs. ATV All Out, this is going to be just a wait and see kind of thing. And even if we see gameplay, and even if we see trailers, more trailers and whatnot, we're not really going to know until we get our hands on the controller with the game ourselves. I mean, you're just not going to know. Like, but by the screenshots, I mean, it's looking decent. It's looking okay by what we've seen so far. But I just, man, I hope they go back to that Reflex style of actual physics. And who knows, they may make a whole different system that's even better than Reflex. I know that sounds fucking impossible, but they could actually do that. They just got to remember, you know, you got to have the feel in the bike. You've got to have enough actual skill gap within your tracks where it's harder to jump stuff. You know, it's like you got bigger lines. You actually have line options, and the speed of the bike feels right. That's another really big thing that can make it feel like you're just on a cloud, is when the actual speed of the screen movement is not fast at all, yet you're like wide ass open and it feels like you're going like a turtle speed, you know. There's a lot more elements than just like how the bike whips and shit. Like, people need to understand that there's a lot more to it, and it's a difficult thing to get right. Like I said, there's a balance to that. You don't want it to turn into a simulator, because we already have a simulator. You know, you want it to be like an easily accessible motocross game, but that's deep with its skill gap at the same time. So that's what they got to try to find. But either way, I appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later, dudes.